Hello all, this is the Bad Catholic and we're here for another installment of pro-life strategy, theory, and practice, etc. There is a popular argument among the abortion lobby as of late. What will you do with a woman who has had an abortion illegally if you win? Now this catches many off guard. And I have to admit, it caught me off guard the first time I heard this too, because obviously we're so focused on saving lives, we don't really consider what we're going to do when we win. However, it is actually an incredibly weak argument for several reasons, and I'll list them below. First, it is poor because it presumes that there is no tradition of jurisprudence on the crime of abortion. This is blatantly false, of course. The abortion crowd is the new kid on the block, not the pro-life group. We have 600 years of common law supporting our position to fall back upon. Within that view, it was the abortionist, not the mother, who was seen as the criminal. For the abortionist was the one manipulating and victimizing a woman that would otherwise not engage in such a crime. That is to say, the abortionist profits by committing murder. Now, I have serious issues with this, but that's the tradition. That's all I'm presenting. Second, if a woman is seeking to commit the crime of abortion and either does it successfully or dies in the attempt, we are under no obligation to feel sympathy for that individual. Morally speaking, of course. This may sound incredibly cruel. However, do we hold such a ludicrous standard for those who commit other capital offenses? It does not follow that since there are rapists and robbers and murderers that have good intentions or good reasons for committing their crimes and or die in executing them, that we should therefore decriminalize said activities and enact further legislation to make homes safer and more readily accessible for such people to commit these crimes in. Number 3. This reasoning suggests that since a morally repugnant cultural practice is complex in its dismantling, it should be therefore tolerated. The old Jeffersonian, it's like holding the ears of an angry wolf. You don't like it, but you don't dare let go idea. We do not respect this concept in regards to the continuation of slavery it was in fact condoning, and it's equally repugnant to the legal infanticide of abortion. Yet this is actually attached to a much deeper concern by our opponents. Maybe not on a conscious level, but certainly intuitively in my opinion. That is to say, the bulk of abortion advocates are firmly ensconced in the Enlightenment process of understanding the world. If we look at history, we find the Enlightenment way to handle defeated ideologies is to institute show trials and executions. Whether it's the French Revolution or its progeny, the Soviet Nazi fascist revolutions, or even the more moderate EU dealing with the Balkan crimes of the 1990s, the pattern is the same. A show trial, then the humiliation and destruction of the perpetrators. Since this is the tradition this intellectual pariah comes from, now that is the standard that they expect to be handled with. However, we are not necessarily from the Enlightenment as pro-lifers. Most pro-lifers are religious. Thus, we have a concept of forgiveness and reconciliation, at least in the Christian tradition anyway. Now, with the Nuremberg trials, we could point out leaders and say, they're the culprits. However, with abortion, over the last 40 years, we are no longer in that category. We are in the category of cultural complicity, like the genocide of Rwanda, your neighbors. These are people who have built academic careers and professional careers off of defending and promoting abortion. There are doctors, nurses, and politicians that have done the same. There are parents and friends that have pressured and assisted in the crime of abortion. There are parents who've driven their children to have abortions. And more significantly, in many ways, I think, many of our fellow citizens have executed the crime by having abortions themselves. Thus, the Enlightenment tradition of demonizing and exterminating the opposition is a very frightful prospect to those who would otherwise sympathize and agree with us. The answer that we must have before even opening into the discourse is the exit strategy. I think I've established why the Enlightenment pattern cannot really work, but the answer is actually from the Christian tradition. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was founded by, or instituted by, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. With this commission, those that promoted and profited from the crime of abortion would have the opportunity to be questioned on the matter with full immunity from prosecution. Those who were affected by the crime may also testify as well. The objective of the commission is not to condemn anyone, but to make a cultural confession and purge society of its errors, reveal it for the ugly abomination that it is. Now, many of us, I believe, and myself included, in former years were thoroughly indoctrinated to think it was true, so we don't have to necessarily demonize everybody who holds this position. Naturally, anyone who received any honor from the state for committing abortions must be stripped of it. In my country of Canada, for example, Morgenthau getting the Order of Canada. And the testimony recorded for the historical benefit of future generations and cultures. Thus, when we have an established exit strategy that does not demonize our adversaries, but focuses on healing and forgiveness, we open an intellectual route of retreat for our opponents to be able to change their position. This solution allows for many that would otherwise have a philosophical choice between acknowledging their wrong and an imminent trial, and acknowledging their wrong and a dignified avenue of withdrawal. I'll continue as to why this is actually necessary from our presuppositions and the nature of the arguments between our two sides in another installment. But in the meantime, this has been The Bad Catholic, and as usual, Ave Maria. Take care.